Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about the spell Clone.
Oh, oh, it's me. It's clone, but it's actually a hairbrush. So that's a good bit. I like that bit. Clone is an 8th level necromancy that's a wizard exclusive. So it has an hour cast time, range of touch. Components is a verbal somatic material with a diamond worth at least $1,000 that is at least at least 1 cubic inch of flesh of a creature that has to be cloned, which the spell consumes. A vessel worth at least 2,000 gold that has a sealable lid and is large enough to hold the creature being cloned, such as an urn, coffin, or mud-filled cyst in the ground, or a crystal cylinder is also required. That isn't consumed though. So like you get something that you consume whenever you're cloning the creature, and you need a big thing to grow it in, which I love that it includes a mud-filled cyst. That's so orcish from Lord of the Rings. Adore. Anyway, the spell grows an inert duplicate of a living creature as a safeguard against death. The clone forms inside the vessel used in the spell's casting and grows to full size and maturity after 120 days, which is a long time. You can also choose to have the clone be a younger version of the same creature. It remains inert and endures indefinitely as long as the vessel is undisturbed. At any time after the clone matures, if the original dies, its soul transfers to the clone, provided the soul is free and willing to return. The clone is physically identical to the original and has the same personality, memories, and abilities, but none of the original's equipment. Duh. The original creature's physical remains, if they exist, become inert and cannot be restored to life since the creature's soul is elsewhere. Neat.
All right, I'm a
It's
little
a
bit
backup save.
yeah. All right, I'm confused about two things.
Okay.
Was was the hairbrush supposed to be you, or
Yes.
like you had DNA in there because it had hairs in it, and so you can clone from that?
Conveniently now both.
Okay, all right, that's cleared up.
Right.
Um, and the
Very important question.
yeah, thank you. Okay, and that thing with the younger version of yourself. This clone forms inside a sealed vessel, grows to full size maturity. You can also choose to have it clone be a younger version of the same creature. Does that mean you can you know, like just have yourself as a teenager and you go back to that body?
Yeah.
So you can live forever?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's neat.
Yeah, clone is logistically weird and not that useful, but interesting to say the least.
If you want to live forever and not be a lich, then it's pretty
Here's
cool.
here's the thing,
Uh-oh.
Bob. When is living forever useful in Dungeons and Dragons?
As a character's motivation.
Sure, I think that is the where clone lands as an interesting spell. And because you're a wizard, it isn't the end of the world to stick it in your spell book. You can get another 8th level spell and be like, yeah, it's probably good enough. You can switch out a lower level one for something better too. Like, you got a little bit of flexibility. You got plenty of spells to go around. Sure, clone can be the fantasy spell that you just jam in your book because that's where you want your character's motivations to go.
Right. I mean,
120 days
aside
is
from that,
so
yeah.
long.
I mean, can you have multiple clones going? I don't see a
Yeah,
reason why not. Yeah. Um,
this literally is the Rick and Morty basement of just billion of
right.
bricks, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is every single tropey. There's backups of backups. Emperor Palpatine way back in the day before the Rise of Skywalker stuff, whenever in his canon there was a bunch of weird clones of him and stuff, right? Which I think is kind of canon now. I don't know exactly how they made that work out. No, I don't think many people know exactly how they made that work out, but that's not important. The idea being cloning like this is a pretty typical villain fantasy, and it's pretty typically like science fiction. And there's a really weird history in D&D of sci-fi overlap with D&D. Like, there were spaceships and stuff and ray guns that eventually Fantasy Adventures would use.
I don't like that. That always bothers me. But this one doesn't. This one feels like, okay, this is a use for magic. Not,
I think
you
a
know,
crystal cylinder contained with salt water is just a back to tank. Like, it looks like straight out of science fiction, in my opinion. But the other stuff, like a huge coffin or a mud fist filled cyst, then it's much more like, yeah, I get it. I also want to meet the wizard that wants to be reborn in a mud filled cyst. I want to know what that person's deal is, because that seems weird, like a weird choice.
well, you gotta, coffins are expensive.
Great. I mean, the mud filled cyst still cost you $2,000.
All right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like, yeah, no.
Which I also then I love. This is a jumping off point to be like, how does one determine the objective value of mud-filled cyst. Like, do you get a prospector? Do you have like a geologist that's like, yes, this mud-filled cyst is going for a market value 1,500 gold, and you have to literally be like, not enough. We have to find a more expensive. Well, show me what else you got.
But yeah. So
If
it's
anyone ever tries to
usefulness.
say D&D isn't stupid, I'd like to point them to this exact moment in time. But anyway, I'm sorry, continue.
As a tool for living forever, the usefulness is dubious, character motivation and all that. However, as a backup life, when things don't go as expected, and your contingencies don't pan out, or your other plans or whatever you got going on, and crap, I died. It's nice to know that you can be reborn.
If, and this is a really big if, like a third of a year's passed since you've cast this, right?
That's why you cast more than one.
So you have to still wait a third of the year for each, right? So like, if it in the cases that I tend to play D&D, campaigns take 20 levels and jam them down into like less than a year, right? Most D&D adventuring level ups happen whenever an 8-hour or 6-hour event occurred, right? A dungeon happened, you went from 9 to 10, right? Mm-hmm. In the instance of those campaigns, 120 days is a long time, especially in a situation where teleportation, plane shift, you got big instantaneous travel effects to lead to time passing faster, right? There isn't much reason now to say 6 months pass whenever you can simply say, I circle of teleportation to that city. I use plane shift to get to the city of Brass. I do X, Y, or Z to instantaneously be somewhere, which means conclusions can arrive a lot faster, which means the DM can push things and make big explosive adventures happen session to session. This spell basically requires there be 3 months of downtime as you're reaching the final arc of your campaign, which seems like not a likely thing to occur, right?
Probably not, but I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt because I want to like this spell.
Clone is cute. It's cool. It's odd. It's a little odd duck of a spell. I actually think I put this somewhere around where I put astral projection and its actual utility. In that, like, thematically, it's interesting. It's really got no business being a spell, nor does it have any business being like usable in this form by players, because I just don't think it usually is. That being said, this existing, I think, is neat. I think this is a cute world building tool more than it is an actual usable castable spell by players. I definitely see villains to be like, you killed them at 6th level and they came back somehow, clone. You killed them at 15th level, clone. You can have the recurring villain keep coming back over and over again, and the players have to hunt down other little clone hatcheries that they've got scattered around the map, right? Maybe you have an entire villain whose arc is becoming big and politically important figures using disguises and stealth, stealing magic, taking people over to get access to difficult to reach spots in specific cities, planting clone laboratories in them, and then just the players have to go through and find all these highly guarded, difficult to get to places to break through the barriers, say there's clones in there, we have to burn and destroy them, or the evil lich is going to take over the world, right? That can be a really cool, exciting plot device. It has no business being a spell players are able to take, though.
Shovel the mud out of those cysts.
Exactly. It gives the barbarians something fun to do.
Or great use for the mold earth spell.
Sure. Getting things out of mud-filled cysts. I'm glad that's what we chose to fixate on for the majority of the comedy that this video gets to bring is the mud-filled cysts. Because every time I say it, it's just like gross. Yeah. It's wonderful imagery.
All right. Yeah, I mean,
you were right. This spell isn't as complicated as I thought it was.
It's not as complicated, but you're right in that it's not as useful either because of the duration or the casting time, or no, with the maturity time, the 120 days. That's, I guess, at some tables where lengths of time pass. That's really what it's going to come down to in its usefulness, I think.
And I think even in those cases, right, you have to ask yourself, Add those tables. Is resurrection magic really this hard to come by that you need clone, right? Is resurrection really like, are there no 5th level divine casters that are anywhere accessible that you would take clone over it, right? Because this still costs you $3 grand to start.
I'm saying, like, just in case.
Sure.
I like to have that kind of insurance
That's fair.
when my life is on the line. But no, yeah. I'm not as stoked about it as I was at the beginning of this video.
And I will say, at the tables that are doing that, where between levels there's 6 months of downtime, you being able to have a 3,000 gold backup for the whole party, that is entirely fine and pretty good, right? It's just, those tables don't really happen that often, in my experiences, right?
All right, you got anything else to say about it?
I think it deserves a 1 at 99% tables, so I'm going to give it a 1. I think the rest of the tables where it is usable are so infrequent that you shouldn't consider it, and likely have entirely reasonable other ways to get resurrection magic that I don't ever think a character mechanically has a reason to take this.
You're absolutely right in everything you said. It deserves a 1, but I'm giving it a 2 because I want to.
That's a great reason.
Yeah. All right. Challenge viewers, vindicate my 2.
You know what? I'll bump it up to a 2, but only on the condition that it's always in a mud-filled cyst. But if it's anything else, it's got to be a 1.
All right. All right. Well, that was Claude. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, audience, for watching. Thank you, designers, for the mud-filled cyst.
Yeah. And let us know in the comments what your preferred vessel of being cloned in is.
Is there an option?
No. I mean, you can make up your own too, Cyst. It just has to be at least worth $2 grand and be able to hold a person. So that could be anything.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.